Welcome back to Staying Power, or if you are a new listener, welcome for the first time to Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. And we mean that in lots of different ways. And every week we come here to talk about at least one of them, sometimes more of them. And hopefully they are things that you find applicable to your own life. And so we are so happy to have you here. And by we, I mean first and foremost myself, J.D. Winnikin, and my foremost equal, not just me first, but equally, Ashley Kniebel. That's all you get today.
Hi.
Ashley, hi, Ashley.
I really shouldn't be complaining saying that you're first because you do a really great introduction.
Well,
so.
you know,
thanks for being first.
You're welcome. So not first in importance, just first in introduction. That's all. So, but we have a third person in the studio today.
I know, we do.
Which we will talk about in just a minute. But we are excited for a lot of reasons, not just because we have our guest here, but because we are launching our live stream. And we are now recording. So you can not only catch this as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts, if you're not listening to this live on 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle, but if you want to see what this looks like, you can now join us at the Staying Power YouTube channel. And that's Ashley waving at you. She's very excited. Now you all get to see the looks on her face that she's giving me all the time during the show. And get an idea as to whether or not they're actually warranted or not, or if she's just giving me a hard time. I'd be interested in people's feedback on that. But if you would like a link to the live stream, you can get that in the show notes of this, wherever you get your podcast, and we'll be putting it up on our social media feeds right after the show. So thank you so much for joining us. And Ashley, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm wonderful.
I know. Isn't this an exciting day?
Beautiful day outside. Great to be in here. We have a guest, as you said, who is patiently waiting for us to
waiting. And
introduce him.
And it's not just any guest. And
No.
we always have great guests.
We do.
This is a special moment, though, because our guest today is not only a friend of ours, but he is hosting a new show, radio show and podcast that will debut a week from today on 1150 AM KKNW, excuse me. At 2 o'clock Pacific time on Wednesdays. That's a couple hours before this show. And then it will upload as a podcast, just like ours does, later in that day. And he's got a whole bunch of bells and whistles already set up for this thing using a lot of multimedia tools. And so he's putting that podcast, though, under the Staying Power network of shows. It's our first.
It's our first child.
Our first child. So let me introduce Ashley's first child. Our friend,
Hi, Adi.
Our friend and the host of the Diasporaa podcast, Adi Mehta. Adi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, thanks for coming in. I know we're just rambunctious over here, and you're calm, cool, and collected. Thanks so much for being here. How are you?
I'm good. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited for what we're gonna get started on together.
Absolutely, we are too. So thank you so much for, first of all, coming on, but also for putting your trust in us as we start putting together this podcast. And we're going to let everybody know what your podcast is about here as the show goes on. But one of the important things about the Staying Power Network is we wanted to add in shows and voices of people who kind of match up in some ways, a lot of ways, with what we emphasize. You know, stories of resilience, building a better life, whatever that looks like, compelling people who are have all these different perspectives and outlooks on life that can benefit anybody from anywhere. And so we've been really excited to bring you on and have your show come on because we think it matches all of that and then some. So, and I know that's going to be an interview-based show, right, Diasporaa? Yep. And so therefore, today, I want to make sure that we give everybody a chance to get to know you a little bit because I know that's not necessarily going to be the focus of the show.
Nope.
But you kind of deserve your own focus, my friend, because you are an intriguing guy. You're a fun guy. You and I are having a whole lot of fun teaching each other sports.
Yes.
I'm learning cricket, everybody, from this man, which is its own thing. And then he's learning more about baseball and hockey from me.
Right.
More or less. So before we talk a little bit about the show, let's talk a little bit about you. The show is in some ways reflective of your experience having moved here from India
right.
a number of years ago and having had quite an extensive experience in what it's been like to live both in Canada and here in the United States. So if you're going to introduce yourself to a whole group of listeners, what would you tell them about yourself?
I'm originally from Bombay in India. For those who don't know, Bombay is the New York and Los Angeles of India, the financial center and the one of the film centers, media centers. I moved to Austin, Texas when I was about 17 years old for my undergrad. Spent 4 awesome years. Go Texas Longhorns. It was a good time to be at Texas because, 2006 Rose Bowl. I had to move back right after I graduated. I had a job offer, but the economy was worsening. So there was, the folks who need the work visas are the ones who get cut usually first. So I moved back to India with no real plans in place. And then I spent 10 years in India, more or less trying to move back to this part of the world because I really enjoyed myself here. I think I had a romanticized notion because student life is very different from adult life.
Yeah.
So I spent most of my time trying to get back, but also spent 7 years in my family business, working alongside both my parents, and then branched off on my own into the tech startup scene. Had a couple of companies of my own, and in 2017, I made a real attempt once. It was like my last attempt to move to this side of the world. And what happened is after many, many months of trying, my visa got rejected anyways. But I was up to here with, I just want to move to, and specifically the Pacific Northwest or the lower mainland in Canada. And Vancouver seemed like a great alternative. And our permanent residency took like 3 weeks, and we were like, okay, so I guess we're going to Vancouver then. And we showed up, my wife and I, with no real plan on what to do next. My wife thinks it was more about escaping Bombay than being attracted to Vancouver. I neither accept nor deny that claim. And we spent 4 years in Vancouver, continued to work on our businesses. Somehow I landed up working at Amazon, and my job was to launch new warehouses in Canada. And these are the last mile warehouses that enable the really fast delivery. So if you're listening up north of the border and you get an Amazon package, quickly I probably had something to do with it. Eventually Amazon brought me over here, and as it happens with many large organizations, plans keep changing. So the role I did was no longer existing. And I thought, before I get laid off or have to move back to Canada, let me jump back into entrepreneurship, which is my default setting, so to speak. And took some time to figure out what to do next. And now I own a property management company. And I guess now I have a podcast.
Yeah.
So that's a very quick last 20 years for you.
That's really well done. Ashley always says I'm very long-winded when I tell a story, and that was very economical. You told that very well.
That's good.
Yeah, and it's fair to say, Ashley, we both know Adi pretty well, that when he says he's an entrepreneur, he's kind of underselling the fact that he's an entrepreneur, don't you think?
Yes, I would say an entrepreneur in many facets, not just a single facet.
Right.
Of course, but.
Because, of course, and you should tell everybody, Ashley, how long, because he may not want to out of modesty, but how long, he's has a property management company, how long has he been doing that?
What, here it's been like 1 year?
Yeah, just 1 year and change.
Oh, and change. Okay. And how many properties do you have
In
1 year?
Just over 50.
That's fantastic. You're a really go-getter.
I like to say I manage $50 million in assets. Oh. That sounds a little more impressive than 50
It looks
properties.
real good on the resume. Great job.
Yeah. That does sound, that is pretty impressive. And that's been something that you mentioned, that you've had a couple of other startup companies, but those were in Canada, correct?
The first 3 were in India, and the 4th one was in Canada.
Okay. So you built those, sold them off?
Sold some of them. Some of them ran out of money. Some of them didn't last COVID. One was born out of COVID. So it's all over the place.
Right. So you kind of you've always struck me as having a mind that is almost, despite being very organized, I know you're one of the most organized people I know, but also you seem to be looking for opportunities everywhere. Is that a conscious thing that you have developed, or have you been naturally curious like that, looking for opportunities?
I have a sense of curiosity, which is, I don't know many people with that sense of curiosity. When I was a young boy, my dad used to call me, in Hindi, it's called Prashna Kumar, which means young man who asks a lot of questions. And he would challenge me on the commute to work. You have to ask 100 questions today. And I would ask 100 questions about everything around me. And my son is exactly like that. The other day I put an apple in front of him. I said, ask me as many questions as you want. And he asked me 12 questions about the apple. So it comes from a sense of curiosity. The part of the country or kind of ethnically where I'm from, we're known to be entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. It's kind of in your genes, so to speak.
Right.
So it's from people from the state of Gujarat in the West. They tend to be more entrepreneurial, and I think part of it is contributing to that. And then obviously, if you're from a business family, that that was the default for us, is to go do a business versus work for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wow, right, because you said you're from the LA/New York, of India, and that's really kind of the merchant area, right?
Yeah, the west of the country is more entrepreneurial. Bombay is or Mumbai, as it is now called, is a magnet for people from all over the country. And just out of the way the states were organized when India was a British colony, there's a lot of people from my state in Bombay, which is not where we are originally from, mm-hmm. and vice versa. So we're fourth generation Gujaratis from the neighboring state of Gujarat who live in Bombay. So we have we understand both languages, mm-hmm. But in general, that whole western swath of the country is very high on entrepreneurship because the traders used to trade with the Middle East back in hundreds of years ago,
right?
And it's always been trading routes on that side of the country,
right? So just to give people a sense of size, what's the population of Mumbai/Bombay now?
I think it's gonna be in the low 20 millions.
Okay.
So it would probably be the third largest state of the U.S., but it's in an area the size of Greater Seattle.
That's amazing.
Yeah. You have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. And in terms of the city size in India, is it the biggest city in India?
No, actually, Delhi now is probably the biggest city.
Okay, the capital.
Because it doesn't have a big urban agglomeration because the Bombay to Ahmedabad corridor in India, the Western India, is very similar to the Boston-Washington corridor. It's just city after city, whereas Delhi is like Dallas-Fort Worth. It's just got nothing around it. So it sucks up everything into one big metropolis versus being a string of large cities.
Okay, man. So coming over here to what we consider big cities, Vancouver's a pretty big city, right? And you've been to a few others of the big cities here. It must not seem quite as big.
There's probably a suburb or two the size of Vancouver, like one suburb that has that many people. So we actually find it very slow. My wife especially did. Mm-hmm. Vancouver was very super sleepy compared to Bombay. Mm-hmm. Bombay's like New York, 24/7. You'll get whatever you want. Mm-hmm. So it took some time to adjust to that. I think I was better prepared for it than she was, though.
Okay. Ashley, what are you taking in here?
I'm just learning a lot about India over here. What? I did not pay attention to geography much in school, so.
That was my specialist topic as a quiz champion. I was. Of
course, he was a quiz champion.
I was a quiz team champion of my school. Yeah.
Like for how many years in a row?
The 6 years I was in the school.
Of course.
Okay.
I came on a TV show. There was a quiz TV show in India called the Bournvita Quiz Contest, and Bournvita is like a chocolate drink for kids.
Yeah.
So it was a big deal.
It's like Indian Yoo-hoo.
Sure.
Yeah. Sort of.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to ask the question if there was anything that you haven't been 100% successful at.
Oh, yeah. Not all my companies were successful.
Well, we talked about that, but outside of that.
No, I'm still married after 13 years.
Okay, good.
That's a success. That's good.
Yeah, I have a wonderful kid, so I'm doing something right in that, I wasn't always the best student. I kind of scraped through my undergrad, but with each successive degree, I got better and better and got more value out of it as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because so you went to University of Texas for your undergraduate, and you've done work elsewhere, right?
Yeah, I've done an MBA from the London Business School in the UK.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have a degree in alternative finance, focused on real estate finance.
Okay. All right. So before we go into the break, just really quickly, what was it about school that you always scraped by? Was it you were bored?
Pretty much. I didn't focus much on subjects I didn't like. And,
Gotcha.
with the undergrad, you have to take so many different subjects at the start, especially, chemistry 401, calculus. It did interest me. And I was focused on running the Longhorn Cricket Club. So that took up most of my attention, I would say.
Okay. So you're talking about in your college years.
Yeah.
You scraped by.
It was the largest university cricket club in the U.S. by the time I was
amazing.
done. And that's where my grades took a hit, I think.
Okay. I was thinking you were talking back in India, and I was thinking maybe it's because you had to ask your dad 100 questions on the way to school.
Well,
you were just asked out.
Teachers don't want to hear 100 questions because they have work.
No.
That's funny.
I was an average student in school.
Okay.
In high school up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and it's something that does sometimes fit the entrepreneurial mind that isn't necessarily translate over into academic.
Yeah,
rigor.
for every business you do, you're probably rejecting 25 to 30 business ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for reasons not to do them. So I would have evaluated all sorts of things. Like I was telling you before the show, evaluated a vending machine business, or I've evaluated an e-commerce business based on AI and print on demand so that you never touch the product. So all sorts of things come and go by, and I'm a curious person. So I take all of it in.
Okay, well now everybody, you've gotten a nice snapshot of our guest.
Now, hopefully they're curious by.
Yeah,
Right.
and I bet you are. And so when we come back from the break, we are going to talk to our guest Adi Mehta about his new show Diasporaa, which is debuting next week, both on 11:50 a.m. KKNW and as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It is the first show under the new Staying Power Network, and we're so excited to have him here. We're going to talk about that show when we come back, in addition to our weekly segment, which this week is the 2 Minutes of Triumph. So we will be back in just a second. Stay with us.
Every day, women like me go to the doctor for annual checkups for conditions like breast cancer. Early detection saved my life. But women with disabilities face a cruel reality: inaccessible medical facilities and equipment.
I went to a doctor's office I was told was accessible, but when I got there, I couldn't get through the front door.
Our veterans deserve better. Help PVA fight for access at pva.org.
Get the fuel your road trips need by listening to American Road Trip Talk every Friday from 1 to 1:30 p.m. on KKNW. As an extension of American Road Magazine, this half-hour program brings you adventure-filled interviews from the people behind the places featured in the magazine that make this nation so unique. Pack your suitcase, grab your car keys, tune in to American Road Trip Talk, and receive the road trip planning information you need to confidently explore the road less traveled.
Talk radio for the heart and soul. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power, everyone. This is JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are with our guest, our esteemed guest, our good friend Adi Mehta, who is been telling us about his background in India and coming over to both Canada and the United States for education as well as for his entrepreneurial career. And he is starting up a new podcast called Diasporaa, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. Adi, you having fun so far here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, it's good that you're getting used to being behind the mic because you're going to be behind the mic for a while here. So, all right. But before we discuss Diasporaa, let's go ahead and do our weekly segment where Ashley and I, and also Adi's going to join us this week, each take about 2 minutes to talk about something that was a triumph of the week. Sometimes we do 2 minutes of terror, but because this is a big launch day, it's exciting, we decided to go with 2 minutes of triumph. So, here we go. Eric, hit that amazing music.
Yes!
All right, there we go. All right, Ashley, you
oh,
are
as always. Oh, thank you. I would say, I think ours is kind of a collective thing here, but in the specifics of it, in the growing and launching of our Staying Power Network and getting Adi's show up and going and support with all that, I've learned a lot of strengths and weaknesses about myself that I didn't know I had before, which are great. As much as they can be frustrating sometimes, I take it as a total triumph because I'm learning new things. I'm having to do things I've never done, and I'm getting really comfortable with being really uncomfortable. And it's just a huge thanks to both of you and our Staying Power Network. I get to do that.
That's awesome. That is a really good way to put it, is you got to get comfortable getting uncomfortable. I will branch off of that. It's very similar for me. I am learning to do a whole bunch of new things here. And one of the things I'm really grateful for Adi, you in particular, is because you've got a lot of experience in the social media world and the tech world. And you've been very generous with your advice and suggestions and help to us, which is just going to improve our show. It's one of the things we've wanted with the Staying Power podcast, is not just to bring shows under our larger banner that we can help push out there, but among individuals who can collaborate to make each other's shows better and to kind of raise the level of everyone's product. And so I've been learning a lot of new things. The very fact that I got a YouTube channel built this week is a miracle. It's a brand new thing. I'm one of those people with tech things that it takes me a little while to learn it. Once I learn it, I'm good. So I'm hoping that it's just going to speed up here. So that's mine. Adi, what's yours?
This podcast is one of those few moments in your life when the universe conspires to, and everything just happens correctly at the same time. I've been toying with the idea of this for a long time. Impact in the community is important to me. I even tried doing it in 2020. I was really in over my head, and there was no AI back then to help out. So this time, I think it was maybe 6 weeks ago that you and I were talking about this. And I think within 4 weeks from the first conversation, we had shot our first episode and show. So for me, that's the moment of triumph. I don't know of anyone who's got a podcast up that quickly while being very heavily involved, in the production and all of that. So.
Right. Yeah. And when you said that to me earlier, I went, wow, a month. We went from concept to first episode, and there's a lot of heavy lifting, right? There's a lot to do. Fortunately, we're so fortunate that we have our partners at 1150 AM KKNW and Hubbard Radio in Seattle that have been so supportive of this and have been really helpful in the process. And it wouldn't happen without them, certainly. And but yeah, that is a triumph. I mean, when you think about it. And for us, one of the things Ashley and I keep talking about is we're so excited that your energy and your enthusiasm for all the things you mentioned, not just doing a podcast, but helping the community, is as excitable and is as evident as ours is.
Right.
So in your own words, how would you describe Diasporaa? What's the show about?
The show uncovers stories of first-generation immigrants from the part of the world that I'm from, so South Asia, Indian subcontinent, to generally North America. This group of immigrants has come in waves over the years, but each wave has a lot of things in common and a lot of things that they are nostalgic about, a lot of challenges they've faced together. And I want to bring some of those stories out so that, one, the people who live here, the general public, gets to learn more about one of the more successful immigrant communities, but also for all of us to get betterment from each other's interesting stories. In India, there's a lot of pressure to be a doctor and an engineer and have like a STEM degree. But there's people doing so many different interesting things in the world. Heck, I'm a property manager, right? So I wanted to sort of show those stories to our own community as well.
Okay. What I find appealing about it, and Ashley and I were talking about this too, is I think the appeal of it, and we'll be straight up. We've already recorded the initial episode, more to come. One of the things we find extraordinary is how, even though it's focused on the community you just described, it's so relatable to anybody who could listen, even from outside that community. It was very relatable to us. What's the power of that part of it, do you think, for the show, for listeners who are outside of the community you're talking about?
I think the biggest goal it could achieve is for people to realize that we're all more alike than we are different. The U.S. I used to live in the mid-2000s, it was not the U.S. it is today. It seems like a more angrier country, angrier within itself and amongst itself. So I think hopefully this will change that. And even at my time at Amazon, it was a very multicultural workforce. The minute I would start talking about football and barbecues, it could be someone who was completely opposite from me, like, maybe an old white person from Kansas, But the minute I talked smack about Kansas State, we were friends. And I think the first time we met, I talked smack about Nebraska.
You did.
To you. So
You did.
So it's to show that we're more alike than different, and we can all still agree to disagree and still be friends and live side by side.
And I got to tell everybody who's listening, Addie's got really good sports smack. He really does talk a good game. Of course, now you live in Seattle, which means you're going to be learning about the Mariners and the Kraken and others. So you're not going to be able to talk nearly as much smack on those for a little while anyway.
He could. He may not have as many friends. But I will say, just from, as you said, we have already recorded an episode. And obviously, because I'm great, I got to listen in on it. And Addie, I'm really excited about your show because, like you said, when you were a child, you were very curious and you asked a lot of questions. And even though you've only done one episode, it's really obvious that curiosity is genuine because of how you interact with your guests on the show. The questions that you ask really inspire some good stories out of them. And it creates an environment where I learned so much about you and your guest in your one episode. I'm like, if this is just the start, I'm very excited to see where this is going to go because I think you're going to take people's stories and be able to magnify them so much just because of the kind of questions you ask.
Yeah, and I think we got lucky with our first guest. She was very eloquent, and even though I know her from so many years, I still learned new things about her and her husband. So I think that worked out quite well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was great. What do you think?
Thank you.
It was all that and more. I think to me, what really struck me about that conversation, as well as your approach to it, is how relatable it was, right? And there's something about your knowledge of this country and of Canada that I think really does come out. It felt like you had a sensibility of not only talking to this person of your community, you have India in common, you have being part of the diaspora in North America in common, but you also know this country pretty well. And it sounded like you had kind of an ear on the non-Indian listener who was here. Was that something you're conscious of?
Yeah, I think all immigrants have a responsibility to try to assimilate and know about the place that they live in. I can sing 3 national anthems for India, Canada, and US. I'm not going to sing them right now.
Oh,
but
we could have it recorded for posterity, man.
That can be on the Patreon.
No, thanks.
There we go.
It's almost our duty to know a lot about the country we live in, and so that we can contribute back even more. So that's always been the case. And if that knowledge helps bridge the understanding gap for listeners on both sides of the world, then why not use it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of questions that keep coming to mind, Ashley. Do you got anyone queued up
Go
that you
for
want
it.
to ask? Well, so you said you've been thinking about doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Right. Does it come out of everything we've already just mentioned, or was there something about this medium, doing a radio show, a podcast, that appealed to you more than, say, some other way to do this?
My friends call me a super connector, and I'm like, if I know so many people, how can I weave that into how I try to impact those around me? And interviews came out as a natural option. I also have always had a creative hobby, and for the past couple of years, they're all kind of just disappeared. I used to do urban landscape photography. I had a 2-week stint as a stand-up comedian as well, along with my brother.
Right.
Before we decided he was the one with the talent. And, well, he decided, not we.
Was that a collective decision?
Agree to disagree, kind of. So I've always wanted to have a creative outlet, and I like learning new things, and I like being good at the things I learn. So all of that also played into the decision.
So you've had quite then, if we've gone from concept to first episode in a month, you've had quite the learning curve.
Yes, I think YouTube's search algorithm is confused as to why I watch videos about podcasting, then switch to Bluey, then switch to cricket, then switch to stand-up comedy. It doesn't know who I am anymore.
It's probably how you want it, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the ads you're getting on your sites.
I think they've given up. I get no ads.
Oh, that's the key.
That's right. You just got to keep it varied. Yeah, you got to confuse the algorithm. That's amazing. I'm wondering, for you, I know you've been over here for a while now, and you've had a lot of experience living here, becoming a part of, like you said, kind of
Today is 3 years, actually.
3 years
Is it really?
Yeah.
in Seattle.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm
Congratulations.
just under 7 in this part of the world.
Okay, so if Vancouver is slow to your wife, is Seattle slower?
Yes, because the move was from downtown Vancouver to suburban Seattle.
Oh, yeah, it's much
so
slower.
it was slower. The city itself, I think Vancouver is definitely more vibrant. There's more going on. It's a more livelier downtown. So I think we both think it's slower, but we have now made our peace with it and actually enjoy living in the suburbs.
Gotcha. And so you've had an opportunity to travel through various parts of the country as well. Do you have other places you like to visit? Any places you're on your list to visit?
Yeah, I've been to 39 states, driven through most of them, and that's a bigger achievement when you live in Central Texas because it takes 4 hours just to get out of Texas. I think on my list of the U.S. states, I have the big ones which I haven't been to are Colorado and Hawaii.
Okay.
I want to go there as next destinations. I always love going back to Austin. I love going to all the big cities, but I also love going to the national parks. And I'm going to check off, I think, 3 more in April when I go to southwestern Utah with my family.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. So this is kind of something that you love to do, is travel around and see these things.
Yeah, that I had an arranged marriage. So you ask your wife or wife-to-be or potential wife questions about the big ticket things. Do you want kids? Are you going to study further? One of mine was, you better be a traveler. Otherwise, we're not talking anymore. And she was.
Is that how you said it?
That's not a
Sure.
question.
Yeah.
First of all.
No, it wasn't a question. It was, this is something about me that's non-negotiable. So for you, if Ahmedabad and Austin are the same thing, then this is not going to work out.
Gotcha. And she obviously is a traveler.
We maybe at different points on the travel curve, and we like a little bit different things, but we both love trying local cuisine, so that always works out well.
Okay. Do you have plans to bring her on your show at any point?
Yes, I will, because the story of a first-generation immigrant pretty much dragged to this part of the world by her husband would make for an interesting perspective as well.
It would. And Ashley, I think you and I need to make sure we're here for that one.
Oh, yeah. I want to be in on that one.
I want to see that one.
We're both so busy with our businesses that we get no time to really talk about life. We might just use that 1 hour to discuss, like, oh, did you buy that gift for that birthday party? And just stuff like that. Because this will be 1 hour of unfiltered time that we get together, and we might prioritize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
For all you know.
That'll be great. And she is remarkable. Prachi is really great. So, Prachi, I know you're listening to this.
She might be watching.
Yeah, you might be watching. Yeah, thanks for being awesome and keep an eye on this guy.
She didn't know what she got signed up for.
Exactly.
She definitely didn't.
So really quick before we go to our next break, I'm interested, is there a couple of things that stand out as something when you came over here were a lot more familiar than you expected, or because everybody thinks about what's the culture shock going to be?
Yeah.
What about the things that felt similar, that felt familiar to you when you went from India to here?
So both times, so when coming as a student to Austin and then coming as an adult to Vancouver, both were kind of second choices for me. I was supposed to go to UCLA, and for a story for another day, that didn't work out, and the last minute I ended up deciding to go to Austin without knowing anything about Austin. And my US plans didn't work out, so I went to Vancouver. My wife had never been to Canada. We knew maybe one person in the whole country. So for me, what was familiar was pop culture, because we get exposed to a lot of American pop culture in India. So for a lot of people, they watch Friends or Big Bang Theory or Modern Family growing up, depending on how old you are. And so that was familiar, that it was kind of like the shows, not exactly like them, but that helped us understand, simple terms like what is a fender bender, right? Like, so those things were more familiar than I expected. And obviously the love for sports, coming from a cricket crazy country.
Yeah.
That was something that was more familiar than I thought so.
And that's one of the things that I've learned in my time knowing you about Indian sports culture. It's as insane as it is here, maybe more.
maybe more in the sense that there's a lot more people rooting for the team. So, it's India-Pakistan game a couple of weeks ago in the Champions Trophy. I wouldn't be surprised if like 500 million people watched that game. And that's not a playoff stage game. It's a league stage game.
Yeah.
So the numbers are bigger. But I do think, Texas fans are as crazy about Texas as India fans are about the cricket team.
Mm-hmm.
What I like here is that the stadiums have these organized cheers and the things that the audience does together, like you have in soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Cricket generally doesn't have that. It's very stadium specific. So I think if that happened, because cricket stadiums routinely have more than 60,000 people. So if they had that kind of coordination in the crowd that they do in the football stadiums here, I think that would be amazing.
Okay. See, it's fun. So, and just you're all getting a sense of why this show, we're such big believers in Adi and what this show is going to be about, because he clearly has a foot on each continent here. So that's a pretty good thing. All right, we're going to take a second break. When we come back, we're going to ask Adi some more questions about his show, Diasporaa, and just get a chance to know a little bit about him. So we will be back here in just a second.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Chef Jamie Gwen here. Tune in for food talk, restaurant reviews, and interviews with the country's leading chefs. I'll answer all your cooking questions, share wine knowledge, and dish on recipes to make every day come alive with flavor. Tempt your taste buds and tune in. Let's dish every Saturday at 5 p.m. right here on 1150 KKNW.
Don't miss Food and Wine with Chef Jamie Gwen. Saturdays and Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m.
Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hi.
And Ashley, of course, is laughing.
Well, I just realized I had one camera on me this whole time that I could have been interacting with. But
well, it's one of the things about learning to be on a live stream, which is new for us. But we are here with our friend Adi Mehta, who is the host of the new Diasporaa show and podcast, which launches next week under the Staying Power Network banner. We're really excited to have him here. And it's a fascinating show in its concept, and so far with what's been recorded, it's going beyond what we thought it could be. And I know you're very pleased with it so far, and as we are too. So we want to keep talking a little bit about that and kind of help establish for our listeners in this last segment some of what you talked about, the commonalities that we have. And you and I personally talk about this, quite a bit. So, Ashley, where's a good place to start on that?
well, because your show is Diasporaa, but that's not your first Diasporaa experience that you've done with a podcast, correct?
Right. The first Diasporaa was born out of me trying to turn adversity into opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
This is right after COVID in Canada. I was living in Vancouver, and during COVID, I got laid off, locked down like everyone else, and my family was stuck in India for who knows how long, because they said it's going to be a 2-week lockdown, but it didn't seem like it.
So you mean your wife was over there?
Yes, and my 2-month-old. Then 2 months.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
Prachi, you are a champion.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she had family around her, thankfully, to help her. But it was a unprecedented kind of situation for me. So I said, how do I take this opportunity where I'm going to spend 3 or 4 months maybe with no responsibilities around me, nothing really I can do about it, and with all this time and focused attention. So I created a platform called Diasporaa also, which helps new immigrants from South Asia assimilate and get up to speed faster in Canada. There were a few different types of immigrants I identified. There's people who come from the US to Canada as tech employees. There are people who come straight cold turkey from India. They've never lived abroad. They all have different sets of challenges. And the platform centered around forming micro communities that would help people meet others who are very similarly in the same boat. And also then do meetups, share resources, teach people how to write a resume that appeals to Canadian recruiters, or what's a loony and a toonie, right?
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people didn't have any of that context, and eventually it grew to almost 7,000 members. But since I moved here, it's become more of a keep the lights on mode. And we don't do any meetups anymore, but the communities are very much active on the internet.
And I know from conversations with you and others that turned out to be a really important series of micro communities for a lot of people there.
Yeah, you landed, you're burning money, you can't get a job, you don't know anybody. It can get pretty daunting. So I made a lot of great friends, obviously. Hopefully collected some good karma along the way by helping all of these people get through that time and also make friends. Last I heard, there was somebody who met their now fiance at one of my meetups.
Oh, that's nice. Look at that.
Yeah.
So if you did, beautiful story, by the way, like, can we just say that this is a testament that you came to that country and then the lockdown happened and you're by yourself and your wife and family and your new little guy is at home. And instead of just turning inward, be like, oh, this sucks. What am I going to do? Which I know is not your default, but
I gave myself a 10 days to do that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then you're like, all right. But you, not only were you just not looking for opportunities for yourself, but you're like, I'm going to create opportunities for many other people around me.
Yeah.
That's just incredible. First of all, to say this about you, but, since you did that up there and you're doing a new Diaspora show here, do you ever see something like that happening here with your new show of creating a community or events and getting people together again?
So with the first platform, the podcast was one of the content pieces of the platform. Here, the podcast is the platform. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, it differs. I also feel that the use case is very different, speaking tech language. The Indians who come here mostly come for education. Mm-hmm. And so they come into a college environment, which is a support system by itself.
Sure.
Whereas in Canada, the Indians coming were straight. They've never lived abroad. They don't know where the Indian store is or where to find the Indian groceries. They don't know what how credit scores are calculated. So the value I could add there was much higher. I think the value I could add in this situation is much higher through these conversations versus creating a platform.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how these things grow organically for the show, right? Because I do think one of the things you highlighted when you were talking about the show initially was kind of tapping into the larger South Asian community that's growing in the Puget Sound region, which it really is growing.
Yeah.
What's the current numbers on that right now?
I'm gonna ballpark say it's 180,000 or so in the greater Seattle area.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
And growing.
Sometimes it seems like there's a lot more, but I think it's probably in that range. They're maybe concentrated in certain parts of the city, as most minorities tend to do when they're new.
Okay.
Is everybody lives in the same area so that they get that support system.
And if we were to expand that out, do you? I don't know why you might necessarily know this, but I wouldn't be surprised if you do. Being you, what's the larger diaspora size in the United States, for example?
It's about 3.5 million.
3.5 million. And Canada?
Similar number, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, even though they have 1/10 the population.
Right.
But the diaspora is very different in the two countries.
Okay.
In Canada, a lot of them went as blue collars. They've been there longer. Mm-hmm. In the U.S., it's different parts of the country. The South and West are more represented, whereas in Canada, state of Punjab is more represented. And here, they're mostly tech entrepreneurs or business people. Mm-hmm. There's a last name Patel, which is very famous. They own a lot of the motels. And then their second generation is obviously doing more diverse things.
Gotcha.
But that's how the diaspora is kind of broken up between the two countries.
Okay, now
I'm going to say Mexico has negligible number of.
Mexico has negligible. Okay, so now since you were the trivia champion for a number of years, this is why I think you might know these things. What's the global number of?
Oh my goodness!
What's the global diaspora of South Asians outside of the country?
I'm going to put the number at somewhere around 25 to 30 million.
Okay.
Which in Indian population terms is pocket change, right?
Because what's the overall population of India?
1.4 billion.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not a lot, but the Indian diaspora is one of the bigger ones, I guess, along with the Chinese one, because we simply have more people to send out. But it's also one of the ones that sends the most money back home as remittances.
Right.
But unlike some other countries where they have big populations like this, India is not as dependent on those because it's a bigger economy and bigger country.
Okay. And so for Indians wanting to travel abroad, live abroad, do what you're doing, are the United States and Canada the primary locations where they want to go, generally speaking, or are there others?
Canada has been very popular last 5-7 years or so, but usually it was the US and the UK. US being a big tech hub and the UK being the old colonial power. But there's large populations all across the Middle East where a lot of them started out as manual laborers. There's a big population in East Africa, which has been there for far longer. And then you have, for lack of a better term, like a random diaspora, like why are there Indian people there? Like the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, or Fiji have diasporas which have been there for several hundred years. And now again, Australia is one of the places which is growing quickly as well. Yeah.
And of course, the country, generally speaking, over the last few decades has become getting more affluent, or at least with more affluence to travel abroad, to invest abroad, that type of thing. And so Indian investment across the world is increasing at a very rapid pace.
Yeah. And the best way to get Indian tourists to your country is to have it as the background for a Bollywood movie. There's a movie which was shot in Spain about 3 friends who go on a boys' trip to Spain before one of them gets married, and it had an influx of people going to Spain.
Okay.
So Switzerland's been doing that for a while. All the Bollywood movies were shot there, and so Indian tourists have known Switzerland for a long time because of that. So it's just one of the way you get more Indian tourists.
So many helpful tips here, everybody. That's amazing.
Learning so many things.
Yeah, and I know, Ashley, you had a question that we were talking about during the break that you wanted to ask.
Well, he's said so many great things about where we're at and whatnot, but was there anything either when you first came over or as you've been here that you find just absolutely puzzling or does not make sense or is hilarious to you in our culture?
Well, the obsession with the not taking up the metric system is one.
Sure.
I still think in metric. So my home thermostat, everything is in Celsius. And then I look at the news and it's like, oh, it's 72 degrees. And you're like, okay, 72 minus 32, then multiply by 5, divide by 9. Okay, that's what this means. So that's the formula. So that was one thing. And then there's some sodas like Dr. Pepper. It tastes like cough medicine. And I don't know a single Indian person who likes Dr. Pepper.
Because it tastes like cough medicine?
Yeah. To most Indian people, they're like, this tastes like, it's called glycodin. It used to be this cough medicine. So that was one thing I found puzzling.
Well, and you were in Texas. That's the heart of Dr. Pepper country.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing I found puzzling was the sheer amount of small talk. And, if you go to a bigger city with more people, like New York City, there's not enough small talk because everybody's too busy. But that's how all of India is in terms of density. So there's no, how's your day going? Nobody cares. Like, nobody has the time. So that especially in Texas, was...
Oh, yeah.
And there's stand-up comedians in India who talk about their trips to the U.S. And they're like, they have this 1-minute conversation with themselves. And then they say, and now we can start talking. So that's one thing I found weird. But now I'm used to it. And I like it as well. So.
Yeah, you're pretty good at small talk.
Yeah.
I think. And it's probably important for business here for all the reasons you just listed.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, well, in the last few minutes that we've got, we wanted to play a little fun game with you because I like your ability in your show to draw comparisons between, for various listeners of, both from your community and from here, about things you might have in common. And so you mentioned that Mumbai/Bombay is the New York and LA of India. So let's play a game of what cities in the U.S. are cities in India. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. Let's start, since we've covered the two biggest so far. Let's go to the third biggest. What's Chicago?
Chicago it resembles Delhi. People are more aggressive a little bit. There's a lot of there's a lot of farmland all around. It gets cold by the rest of India standards, and it's a multicultural city which has been influenced by many waves of immigrants over the years.
Gotcha. Okay, let's just go down the list. Houston, the number 4 sized city in this country. What's the Houston of India?
The thing we have closest to an oil town with kind of brash people is Surat. It's in the state of Gujarat. They cuss a lot down there, and there's a lot of oil refineries and industries there. So and like Houston, they have a big in-state competitor, Ahmedabad, that they're always comparing themselves to.
Gotcha. Okay, and for the sake of time, we're going to do one more. Detroit, manufacturing city.
Chennai, because they, I think, now make more cars than Detroit does.
Oh.
But it's been a motor city for a long time.
What companies are there primarily?
A lot of, I mean, you name it probably, and they'll have something there. But it used to be a big motorcycle manufacturing city.
Okay.
And now it's just grown industrially.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of the fun things that I notice you keep doing in your show is doing those comparisons, which it's always fun to see people's reactions to that. So, all right. Well, we are out of time. Can you believe that, Ashley?
No, it always just zips by.
Yeah, it always does. Addie, did you have a good time today?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And we're so excited to get your show launched next week. And remember, if you want to listen to Diaspora as a radio show live next Wednesday, March 12th, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 11:50 a.m. KKNW. That's just 2 hours before we're on the show. And so you can get a good taste of what that's about then, but you can also catch it as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And there's going to be a lot of different multimedia opportunities for you to catch the show. We are going to be pushing out all that material on our social media feeds that you can find wherever you get Staying Power as a podcast in the show notes, as well as the links to our live stream, because we're all up in our game around here, and Addie's been a big part of that. So thanks, Addie, so much for coming in. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
We're going to have a really good time with it. Ashley, I know you're as excited as I am.
I'm so excited for you.
I know. This is great. So we will see you all next week. Make sure you listen to Diaspora next week. Let us know what you think. Let Addie know what you think. And we will be back. And until then, I am JD.
I'm Ashley.
And we will see you then.
Bye.
Yes!